Wouldn't you like to be able to go inside the voice, to be able to understand how it really works, to pull it apart and get a good grasp of what it is you're doing when you're singing? Well, today, myself and Noomi are going to talk all about how the voice works. I'm Kylene Skyback.
And I'm Noomi Kylene. Let's find out how your voice works.
On the Singable Podcast.
Singable Toolbox! Hey, Kylene. Rumor has it that you need some therapy.
Absolutely.
Why?
It's because with all my vocal teachers in the past, actually, I shouldn't say all of them, sorry, but a lot of them, for many years, they have not explained to me how the voice works. They would put me through my paces and help me and show me all these crazy exercises, tell me what to do, but I still didn't understand how I was using my voice at those times or why I was doing those things until I got a really great vocal coach who helped me and explained.
I think that's so common. You know, it's funny also because all of those exercises, it just makes me wonder, like, did those vocal coaches understand what the exercises were for? Or did they just give you stuff to do because someone had told them to do it and maybe they didn't even know what you were trying to achieve? It's like really interesting to me.
I think one of them definitely didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. But how has it benefited you after you learned a little bit more about how the voice works?
It just is so empowering as a singer to understand how the voice truly works and how you should operate it and where this sound comes from, what it is that's making it effective. And then you're able to actually translate that to others when you teach it. But the control it gives you when you understand how the voice truly works is incredible.
Yeah.
With that knowledge, you have that confidence too to be able to sing so much better.
Yeah. And something I like is that when people find out how their voice works, it just takes a lot of pressure off from them because all of a sudden you understand when something doesn't go the way you want that, hey, it's not that I'm a bad person. It's just that, oh, my breathing isn't working. Like it's not optimized.
Yes.
Or I'm not a bad singer. It's just that I wasn't warmed up. Or, you know, like all of a sudden you understand that the voice, it's all of these different mechanisms that are working together. And sometimes they work fine and sometimes we need to tweak them a little bit. So yeah, I think it's really important to learn how it works. And that also means that when we know how things are supposed to work, that's when we can really maximize our exercises and know what they're supposed to be doing to our voices. So it's very important.
Absolutely. And when to do which exercises as well.
Yes.
To benefit your voice the most.
Exactly. Because some exercises might even make it harder for you to sing.
Yes.
Like you might not need the same exercises as someone else does. Just like when you go to the gym to a personal trainer, they will say, oh, your glutes are really weak. You need to work on those. But whereas someone else might have weak calves they need to work on. So it can be the same with the voice because it's muscles working together.
It's so true. And that's why you need to go to a vocal coach to be able to check in, just making sure that you're using your voice correctly and you're making good decisions with how you're using your voice.
Yeah.
And that way you keep on progressing.
Exactly. And that's why we are building the exercise toolbox for our membership so that we have all of these great exercises, but you can also send in your singing and get feedback and we'll tell you what exercises your voice needs at the moment. And that might change as well over time when you are practicing. So you can always like keep improving your voice.
Excellent. Absolutely. So when it comes to how the voice works, Noomi, maybe we could break it down for our listeners into the different aspects of singing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And maybe we could start with breathing. And how is it that we lay down that building block of breathing when it comes to that foundation of singing?
Yeah. Without air, you can't sing. It's just the way it is. But it's interesting. Okay, so if you imagine that you have a balloon with some air in it, so let's say that the balloon with the air is your lungs. And then on the top, you can pull out like the opening of the balloon to make sound when you let the air out, right? And it's the same thing that's happening with our vocal folds or vocal cords. There's basically the same thing. It's just different terms for the same thing. And when this air comes from your lungs, it's released and it causes the vocal folds to vibrate against each other, opening and closing really, really fast. You can't see it with your naked eye, but if you can slow it down, then you will see that it's opening and closing. And that creates sound.
There is amazing footage out there of this.
Yes, so go onto YouTube and search for just like, footage of vocal folds in action and you will see how it works. It's really cool. But yeah, speaking of breathing, so we have this air in our lungs, but how does it end up there? Well, it happens when our diaphragm, which is a muscle, a dome-shaped muscle that sits inside of your rib cage, it descends. And that happens when the muscle is active. So the muscle is active, it descends, and then it sort of pushes out on your organs a little bit and makes space in your lungs for more air. So the air is actually sucked in automatically by that change in pressure. As long as we're not like trying to suck in air, it will happen automatically. So when we're just breathing, when we're sleeping or, doing normal things, it sort of happens automatically. And then when we want to exhale and make sound, the diaphragm goes back to its original place and then it pushes on this air that is in the lungs and it goes out. So that's basically how breathing works, but very simplified because there's a lot of muscles working, it's not just the diaphragm, which is a common misconception actually in singing.
Absolutely. So it's also the core muscles that are involved in the breathing mechanism. And it would be that the core, it's pushing in and pushing up the diaphragm, closing in on the lungs. And something that I like to say is it's a little bit like a toothpaste tube. As you're running out of toothpaste, you roll up the bottom of the toothpaste to be able to build the pressure up so that toothpaste can keep on coming out. It's a little bit like that with the diaphragm. It gets pushed up by the core muscles to put pressure on the tube or on the lungs in this case.
Yeah, exactly.
And allow that air to come on out and be there to support and create the sound.
I like that, yeah. And it's interesting, I feel like this is something that many singers are confused by because they hear that, breathing is so important. And of course, breathing is really good, but also using your support. And how am I supposed to do that? And some singing teachers will tell them to squeeze their tummy really tight and all of that. But that can really cause some issues because when we are squeezing our tummy, other stuff might be squeezed as well. And
true.
To be honest, we don't need that much air when we're singing. If I exhale, I can still keep talking for a while, even though it feels like my lungs are empty, and now I'm starting to die. But it just shows that we don't need that much air, So it's not only how we use our air on the lung level, but also how we're using our vocal folds if we have enough closure so that not all of the air just slips through because the vocal folds don't close very well. So it's very important to look at the voice as a whole apparatus, everything is working together. So sometimes it's really hard to just work on one little thing at a time. You need to look at the bigger picture most of the time, I would say.
Yeah, it's not just about how you breathe, but how you use the breath. And I think I've said in the past about breathing, you need to focus on your breathing more sometimes. I've said that to students, but what I'm really trying to say is it's how they're utilising the vocal cords and the breath with the vocal cords and making sure that they're creating the right pressure when it comes to their singing.
Yeah, because if we're using too much air, then the pressure below the vocal folds will be too high. And okay, so let's move on. We're going up from the lungs to the vocal cord.
Yeah,
we're already
up to the vocal cords already.
And so what are they even? They're two little, you can almost, when you call it chords, it sounds like it's strings or something, but it's actually, it's more than, that's why we have moved away from calling it chords, but sometimes we do anyway, because it's really hard. It's a habit. But we want to call them folds because it's more like lips working together, like these little pieces of tissue opening and closing. And air pressure is really important here because these two folds, they're just about 2 centimeters long. So quite small, sits straight into your larynx, you can say. And the thing is that if your air pressure is too high below them, it sort of makes it really hard for them to resist all of that pressure. And that's why we want to have an even pressure, because we have air pressure above the vocal folds as well. And this is something that we play around with a lot when we create different vocal exercises. How we can train the brain to use more of this back pressure that builds up. Because if you don't open your mouth super wide, and you just, let all the air come out, but you close it off a little bit and you let some air bounce back onto the vocal folds, then that balances it out. It's like, I'm not so smart, so I don't even understand how this works, but they say that it's almost like you're pushing a kid on a swing when these pressures are balanced. You get that exact right moment when you can get a really good boost. And that's when it feels really easy to sing.
Yep.
And your voice really works optimally.
Yeah.
So it's all very fascinating. But hey, I think we just moved on from the vocal folds to the resonators.
Yes, we're starting to get into the resonators. But before we do, would you like to just talk about why the vocal cords should be relaxed in the larynx?
Oh, yes, actually. You're right. There's more to talk about here. Yeah.
As we get lower, they relax more. They're not as tense, which means the sound is going to be lower in pitch. And as they are tightened and stretch, the larynx tilts slightly and stretches the vocal cords, the air going through. It creates a higher frequency, which is a higher note. And that explains the difference between why we talk like that or why we're talking like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Just like if you tune a guitar and you tighten the string, then the pitch will be higher. And also, like you said, this particular muscle that's responsible for our higher notes, it's called the cricothyroid muscle. These muscles are called by the different cartilages that they are attached to, so that's why they have such weird names. But so that muscle, it will relax as we sing lower notes.
Yeah.
And then it's another set of muscles called the thyroretinoid muscles that run alongside the vocal folds. And they are responsible for making the low notes. And they will also make the vocal folds thicker. So that's why when we sing low notes, it's easier to have more power and make it sound really, you get this really cool, big sound.
Beefy.
Exactly. But when you ascend, the vocal folds are actually stretched out and we can't use those sets of muscles anymore. And that's why your high notes won't have the same sound quality. And that's really important to know because some people, they feel like, they need to push up their the thyroretinoid muscles, like the TA muscles that are responsible for your chest voice, push them as high as possible. But we don't want to do that because it can injure you.
Yeah, you see people stretching their neck as they're trying to get higher. When you see them stretching to try and get a note, they're trying to assist the larynx, but they shouldn't.
Then there's more things happening as well, because then you're getting other muscles involved. So
it's a real strain on the voice.
Yeah.
And you hear that when you're singing. But we don't want to force the sound in any way, and that's not how we get a higher sound. But when we understand the muscles involved and you talk about it and talk through it with your vocal coach, you learn how to not put that pressure on your vocal cords, on your neck, but rather just to utilize the muscles well together.
Yeah, exactly.
So as far as the muscles, there's two lots of muscle groups that you were talking about, and one is for the lower voice and one is for our head voice. And when we have our mix, the two work together.
Yes, exactly.
Which creates that mixed voice.
Yeah, so it's sort of handing it over nice and gently. And if that doesn't happen, that's when the voice breaks.
That's it. Yeah.
It's the coordination. And this is interesting because this makes singing and like using your voice as an instrument very different from playing other musical instruments because it's more like dancing really, because it's muscles coordinating, working together and just finding that very fine balance that's needed. It's just interesting to keep in mind that this is something that can be trained as well.
Absolutely.
For some people it doesn't happen automatically. For most people it doesn't happen automatically. We need to train the voice to do things in the best way.
It is why it's really good to get singing lessons so that you can individually get that feedback. And for me, that's when I was able to become aware of what muscle groups are involved, what I am doing with my muscles involved in singing.
Yeah.
And there were 2 videos that have really helped me. One of them is about how the voice works, and the other one is singing in the MRI.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. It's really
Isn't it
cool.
great?
But that's more like how the resonance is working and where the sound is bouncing
Yeah.
around and stuff,
Well,
right?
maybe we should move on to resonance.
We're moving on. Okay.
Exciting.
Nice. And maybe we can link to those videos in the
Yes,
description for this
let's do
episode
that.
as well, so they can have a look. There's also one I like that's I think it's I don't know if they're students or something, but they have like a larynx of a cow, I think. And then they can see like, okay, so this is the cricothyroid muscle working. I mean, it's a bit gross, but it's like really interesting to see how it's working. Maybe we'll link to that as well.
I thought I was a nerd, but wow,
Yeah,
Noomi.
okay. Right, I'm sorry. I know. Maybe someone out there is too, so willing
It's
to.
great. I'm sure.
But yeah, you were saying about resonance.
Yes.
Can you explain a bit more?
Sure. It's where we create and shape the sound. So we're talking more about the mouth and all the different areas around the mouth, the nasal area, even the top of the larynx and inside the mouth where we resonate.
Up by your sinuses.
Yeah,
and
sinuses, exactly.
Yeah.
All these areas that we resonate the sound in once it's produced. So when you learn the difference between the qualities that you're able to develop when you use these different areas, it's amazing. And even when you're speaking, to hear the difference, for instance, in accents, how it's all influenced so much by our articulators, the tongue, the teeth, the lips, but also how we resonate or hold the sound in separate areas of our mouth and also our sinuses. All of these are working together to create and shape the sound when we talk, but when we sing, obviously is what we're interested in, and how much that impacts on the style of singing and the drama within what we're singing tells a story. It helps do so many things, working with the way we shape the sound and we resonate the tone. So those 2 things together, the resonance plus the articulators, have such an impact on the way that we sound.
And that's also very interesting, like with vowels, because you can sing an ooh in many different ways with different, it's called overtones. This is really nerdy. But yeah, you can shape vowels in different ways and create different sounds with them, but it can also make it harder or more easy to sing on a specific note. So sometimes maybe it's easier to like think of vowels as colors. We can add in other colors as well, mix it in to make it easier to sing. It's but we could probably do an episode on that as well, because it's a whole topic, but it's very interesting. It just shows that there's so much science in singing.
Absolutely.
It's crazy, and people are just now starting to understand that and like looking into it and doing research. So the field of voice science is like it's growing a lot, but there's so much we don't know yet. So it's really fascinating.
Can I give you my favorite vowel that I like to cheat with?
Yeah, tell me.
It's really interesting.
Okay, yeah.
It's called the schwa. And all I can think of is an amazing diction coach in New York who I love dearly, who was so excited about this vowel. And now finally, in the last 5 years working with Australians and needing to neutralise their accents, I can see why she was so excited about it. So what the schwa vowel is, it's actually a phonetic letter. And phonetics are those squiggly symbols you see in dictionaries that help you to understand how to pronounce a word. However, only if you've done linguistics would you usually understand how to read those letters. So the schwa is an upside down looking E. And what it symbolises is the sound So after you've produced phonation, you've had sound come through your vocal cords, it then comes up into the mouth to resonate, and you let it resonate right in the centre of the mouth. It's like a neutral vowel. And what's so beautiful about that is when you have Australians, for example, saying no, instead of morphing those vowels and creating a diphthong, which is that multiple vowels all happening from one to the other, But when they come to understand the schwa, the neutral sound in that middle space, they utilize that more as an actor, as a singer, to be able to have a more neutral, clear sound. Now, the interesting thing, though, about singers is that we want to utilize our vowels in a different way. We don't necessarily want to always have the schwa. Sometimes we might choose to engage in use of diphthongs. An example of that is Celine Dion. For example, she will sing all by myself. And she doesn't sing all by myself or a neutralized or open A. Instead, she uses that morphed vowel, that diphthong, to be able to create a really interesting version of the song and a beautiful sound.
Yeah. And it also helps with her resonance on the vocal fold level, because then that gives her vocal folds a little break, like with the diphthong, it just creates some back pressure. And it's the same thing in, The Greatest Showman, Never Enough, when she goes up on the high note and she sings, the lyrics are for me, but she sings for May, and then she stays on that he, and it just makes it helps her to get better control. So it's very interesting when you sing. It's like, oh, actually, the lyrics are all over the place, but our brains understand what they're supposed to be. So sometimes it doesn't matter if the word sounds kind of strange, because it just fills in the gaps.
And it's interesting that different singers have different preferences, I guess, depending on the way that they're structured and they're made up with their resonance and what they find hard or what they find easy to reach, and whether they're doing it in a mixed chest-dominant voice or head-dominant voice. It all depends. For instance, the end of On My Own from Les Mis, I could never use the same vowel that I heard someone else use the other day. It was the open O vowel, and for me, I have to be on an A, but it just shows how different we all are.
Exactly. And when we belt high notes, like, that's something to keep in mind, that ah is like so much better than like trying to belt on an E or
a more open vowel.
Because some vowels just bring you up into your head voice involuntarily.
Yes, E's.
But yeah, okay, yep. We could talk about this all day, so I don't know if we have time for more nerdiness. So I was just thinking, I can't do this episode without recommending my course on how the voice works that we will have in our Singable Toolbox membership.
Oh, so good.
Because then we will really geek out on all of this. But not only all this like theory stuff, but we will also do some exercises so that you can try this out for yourself. Try using all these muscles that are involved with your breathing. See how does it feel when you close and open your vocal folds, and how does your posture affect your breathing? All of these really interesting things will be included in that course. So, and Kylene, if someone doesn't know about our membership yet, do you want to just fill them in on what this is all about?
Sure thing. I've actually been privy to a little bit of what your course involves, because I've been working on the videos and looking at those, editing those, and I have been loving watching them. And I thoroughly recommend jumping online and getting a membership so that you can get access to this. And so the way that you do it is you go to singabletoolbox.com. And once you go into the website, you're able to take out a membership for the month or for the year, and you're enabled to go into the membership site and be able to access this course and many courses that are basically video courses with multiple lessons within them, and you can watch those as many times as you like. And also, it enables you to have 2 voice lessons basically a month as well, to send us 2 videos of 2 songs per month, and you will get feedback as well from us on how you're doing, and we will give you feedback that points you in the direction of the various exercises that we have up online, so that you get to have that feedback. So hopefully it'll all happen in time. End of February, we should have our first lot of courses up, and the membership should start from then.
We're really working on it.
And one of these courses is this one, How the Voice Works, which Noomi takes. And in the course, there are various lessons, and each of those lessons will break down the understanding of how the voice works And also there's various exercises that Noomi mentioned briefly earlier that are going to be able to take you through and identify those muscle groups we've been talking about so that you can understand when you should use them and utilize them in your singing, and when you need to be careful of how you're using those muscles as well, so that you can use your voice safely and use it in a way that perhaps you've never been able to before.
That's really nicely summed up. I like it. And we will have some other really nice features within the membership as well. So if you want to learn how to sing or just keep developing your voice, it's just, you need to try it out.
Yes.
We're so excited to launch this. It's going to be awesome.
I love the fact that we have this aspect to it that's also focused on performance and giving people experience.
Yeah.
That you can put up videos of yourself singing and get feedback, but only positive feedback from your audience members, from other people within the membership site, that they can also comment on how they were impressed by different things that you were doing. And then there's also the feedback forum where you can directly ask yourself, Noomi, and myself, how it is that your voice is working, maybe a question about what's going on with your voice, what you'd like to understand more about your voice. There's that constant feedback back and forth, and pretty much that'll happen 24 hours.
Yeah, that's true. There's a reason why we're in different time zones, probably.
So whether it's Sweden or here, we'll cover it.
It really works. By the way, how is the weather in Australia? We have snow here in the south of Sweden.
It's 27 degrees and fabulous
27.
palm trees, sand. It's great.
And that's Celsius.
We do have beautiful sun here, but you have the gorgeous snow there.
I don't know how long it will be there. Maybe it will melt. But in the meantime, I will stay inside. I will sing. I will create all the video courses. I will do this podcast with you, and I will hope for spring.
Oh, you're a good woman. And it will be spring in no time.
I think so. But Kylene, do you feel like you had a good therapy session? Do you feel all better now?
I really do.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we have this information available and being able to share this with people out there in the community, whether someone wants to get more information by joining the membership, finding out how to be involved more in that way with Singable Toolbox, or utilizing this podcast, accessing that, and also just signing up for the free newsletter, which is available to anyone with tips and tricks, and our Instagram site. We really like sharing this information because for us, it's been a huge part of our journey.
Exactly.
The more we understand the way the voice works and the more that we share that with others, the more that people benefit and get excited about using their voice and more confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the therapy, sharing it with others. It's makes us feel better. It makes me feel better.
Yeah. It's like a group therapy kind of thing. Very nice.
If I can give that to other people, then that makes me happy and let go of the past and not having that understanding in the past. It was all worth it.
Yeah. It was worth it.
And the more we understand something, the more confidence we have. And so that's why you want to have this confidence so that you can go out and sing with others, sing for others. We just hope that we're among those vocal coaches that do share this information and help people to get there faster.
Well, it's all part of the journey, I guess.
So next time, we're going to be talking about something very interesting. We're going to talk about singing as a member of a choir or chorus versus singing as a soloist, as well as how to sing live versus how to sing in a recording in each of these different situations.
Big differences.
So it's all about performing live or recording. And it'll be a very interesting conversation because we've got a little bit of experience between us to be able to discuss.
I'm looking forward to that. I feel like we both have a lot to say on this topic, so it's going to be great.
We sure have a lot to say. Noomi, this has been a fantastic discussion as always. Thank you for catching up with me today.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. And thank you to our listeners for joining us during this discussion. We hope that you learned a bunch of stuff and that you will jump onto singabletoolbox.com to learn even more. And that we'll see you in our next episode, all about singing in choirs, singing solo, all of that good stuff. And until then, have a great rest of your day.
Keep up the singing, keep up the practice.
Singable Toolbox!